Hallo und herzlich willkommen zur Industry.forward Expo. Ich bin Dana Neitzke und ich bin Ihre Moderatorin heute für die Session E-Procurement as a Means of Acquiring Attractive Sellers. Hier bin ich natürlich nicht alleine. Bei mir ist Rick Huisken, Director Marketplace International bei Conrad Electronic. Hallo Rick, schön dich zu haben.
Thank you.
Und das war es dann eigentlich auch schon von mir. Rick, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. I hope everybody can see my screen and that you can hear me okay. E-procurement as means of acquiring attractive sellers. That's the basis for today. A little bit words about myself. My name is Rick Huisken. I'm a director for Marketplace International, which means that I'm finding and growing the right partners for marketplace business outside of Germany. So we have a German team. We're currently in the rollout of our marketplace in other countries as well, and that is what I'm responsible for. And today I have the pleasure of telling you a little bit about the things that we're doing within Conrad, and especially where we tie our marketplace into e-procurement. There are some things that I would like to talk about, a little bit about our value proposition, but also the challenge that this value proposition brought with us over the years. The solution that we have, which is our open marketplace, the basis that we have for our closed marketplace, which is the solution for the small and medium enterprises. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the procure to pay, the procurement journey for B2B, and also the challenges that we see for our customers on that side. And then I would like to talk about the solution that we have, our closed marketplace, which is the solution for Mittelstand. I think it's a nice German phrase that we know, the bigger companies, and then also the corporates. So a little bit about where it all started. Conrad, our company history. So in 1923, Max Conrad kicked it all off in Berlin, where he opened up an electronic shop called Radio Conrad. That's where he sold products to build their own radio. So it were condensators, the small parts to really start building their own radio. Which was pretty inventive at the time. Radio was already invented, of course, but it was a very expensive a very expensive product. And Max Conrad really made it possible for the normal people to start also building their own radio and enjoying that very new medium at the time. Then in 1946, the first Werner Conrad left Berlin with a backpack full of condensators that he saved from the ravages of war, and he relaunched the company in the place where we are today, in Hirschau, in South Bavaria. And then when we hit 1954, Klaus Conrad really made a quantum leap into the distance selling, which would be the basis for the business that we do today in 1976, through the visionary implementation of the first ERP system. That ERP system really was the basis of moving a lot of products into a system and creating the possibility to start distance selling in general. Then the second Werner Conrad, who is still active in the company today, moved the assortment online as early as 1997. In 1997, they really made the step by putting the assortment on a CD-ROM at first, and really kicked off with the first web shop, and consequently steered at that point in time towards the future by establishing the sourcing platform that we see today. Now, if we look at the strength of Conrad, our assortment has always been one of our greatest strengths. Conrad has always been able to supply the products that customers didn't really need very often, but was very important for them at that point in time. Some feedback that we had over the years from both B2C consumer customers, but also B2B customers, is that if I can't find it anywhere, I know I can find it at Conrad. And the wide and very deep assortment of Conrad is what keeps me coming back continuously, because I can find those products. And if we translate that into a matrix, then we see that our strength really lies towards the lower volumes of products that fluctuate very often. So those are products that you don't buy every day. You might not even buy them every year or every month. So there's no steady need for it, but they're very important for their business. And that is what we're good at. So we're not necessarily good at those high volumes. of products, of the components that are being used by the manufacturing industry in producing cars, for instance. But we are very good at the early stage research development and also the latter stage in the MRO, the maintenance, repair, and operations of the business. And the production, that is what we leave to the very capable hands of some other players. Now, by having a lot of growth in our assortment, I think over the years we grew into roughly 800,000 products that we offer, 250,000 products we actually stock in our warehouse in Bamberg. It became more difficult because the larger our assortment became, the more difficult it became to grow further and to manage that whole growth. So we came into some kind of a paradox, because it was very difficult to keep it all under control and also grow, of course, the amount of resources that we needed to really become a lot bigger. So that left us with some key growth questions. You know, how do we gain scalable access to more resources without also exponentially growing our cost base? How do we create more internal focus? Because the bigger we became, the more dispersed our overall focus also became. And we really needed to focus on the things that we were good at. And with growth, our organizational complexity also became a lot bigger, of course. And what could we do to really reduce that organizational complexity? So what we did for that one is we started our marketplace solution, and we started that at the first place on our web shop, because not only buying and selling products, trading the products was something that we became very good at over the years, but already from the moment that we started building or having our catalog, we became aware of what B2B customers, and at the time also B2C customers, but later B2B customers need. Through having the right content, having the right filters, navigation and search, the buyers are able to find exactly what they need. And efficiency and effectivity are really key in purchasing. And that is what we offer to partners to integrate into. Our e-commerce knowledge, our knowledge of presenting products in a way that makes them easy to find, not only on the platform, but also outside of that. And that eventually led to the decision that we started to offer products that we didn't trade ourselves. You can see it here. Milwaukee, very much in a product category that we do offer. But at this point in time, you can see that Verkauf und Versand durch Dynotech, we allow third-party sellers to sell on our platform on products that we didn't trade ourselves. At first, these were products in our core categories, tools, for instance, or components. But later on, we also expanded rapidly into adjacent categories like office supplies, for instance, or even office furniture. We didn't stop there. We also started to allow offers on products that we did trade ourselves. So if we look at the Fluke multimeter here, we can see that Conrad is one of the sellers that is offering this product together with, in this case, for instance, RS Components, but also Balian. Which means that there might be price difference. There might also be a difference in how fast they're being shipped, how many products they're on stock. And this really brought us into the next phase where we use the resources, the capabilities of third-party sellers onto our platform. We allow them to sell to our customers, to users of our platform. And in this way, we were really able to rapidly scale our assortment further. So the marketplace and buying process in general, buying and selling process in general is relatively straightforward. Conrad acts as the connector. So we help selling partners to upload their supply onto our platform. We already have the customers. We have roughly 2 million buying B2B customers over all of Europe. We bring them together on our platform, and when the customer chooses to buy a product from our partner, the purchase Conrad is actually closed between the selling partner and the B2B customer. The partner is completely in control over everything that they want to define, the content, the price, and they ship straight to the customer, which means that after that point, Conrad basically steps out. From a payment perspective, WebHelp, which is our payment provider, takes over the complete payment process, including creating the invoice on the partner's behalf. So it's still the invoice is legally in the name of the partner, but they send it out to the customer, collect the payment, and afterwards the invoice amount is shifted towards the selling partner, minus the commission that Conrad asks for creating that connection between supply and demand. So this is really something that we set up and which made us grow significantly over the last years, because it took us almost 100 years to get to offering 800,000 products. But it took us 5 years more to offer over 8 million products currently on our platform, which is very interesting for the users of our platform, our customers. But of course, on the other hand, it's also very interesting for the selling partners to get access to over 2 million buying B2B customers, buying B2B users on our platform. We could have never done this without the marketplace. The sheer amount of resources and complexity that would have brought that 8 million product offers into our company would have never been able to manage without the marketplace in there. Now, if we look at the procure to pay journey for B2C customers, but also the smaller B2B customers, we could call them B2B like B2C, really is also very straightforward. Often there's one person within this whole journey that establishes the need for a product, starts to search for that product, eventually buys the product. They will themselves also receive that product and afterwards also pay for that product. It is one person that touches this journey from end to end. And this is where B2B, especially from a larger company perspective, becomes a bit more different and more difficult, because as soon as we hit a size of 20 employees and up, could be even a little bit less or a bit more, multiple people touch different parts of the end-to-end process, whether it's source to pay or procure to pay. In larger companies, the user could be an engineer, establishes a need for a product, could be a multimeter, could be another kind of tool. From that point on, they might look for that themselves, where they can buy it, or they might give the need towards purchasing, which will start to search. And eventually, the one that purchases the product is not the one that needs the product. And the one that purchased the product is not the one that receives the product. It's a different person in a different department. And the one that pays for the product is not the one that received the product. So it becomes a lot more difficult because we need to manage a whole process over multiple departments, multiple people. And if we then look at how companies optimize their procurement in B2B, they have a bit more scientific approach to this. It's called the Pareto analysis or ABC analysis. The challenge that they have is that they much rather focus on 80% of their spend, their strategically managed spend, the A parts of their buying. And that is where roughly 20% of their suppliers will be. But if we then move into the B and C parts, it often accounts for 80% of the suppliers. And all the processes that are happening within the company is very high due to these elaborate processes of taking care of this over multiple departments and the sheer personnel resources that are being used. Now, companies would much rather not have this B and C buying at all, but those products, even though they're not strategically relevant for the production of their products, for instance, they're very important for keeping daily business running. It could be a mouse, it could be a monitor, it could be office supplies. Without having those products, they really cannot do their business, which combines a paradox for them, where they'd much rather not have all the cost in there, but they really do need those products. So if we then look at that whole procure to pay in order to cash process, what's procure to pay for a buyer is order to cash process for a seller. In larger companies, many people in departments take care of that process, and they really want to optimize that also within their own department and business. So the process for B&C suppliers is really the same as for those strategic suppliers. And from the moment that a purchase order is sent out, basically everything happens the same for those smaller, those B2C, B&C volume products as for those A volume products. They still have to create a creditor into their system. They still receive invoices, all the shipments that they need to take care of. And this is really where buyers can save a lot of money by consolidating this supply. Many existing marketplaces out there, and Conrad, same thing on our open marketplace, do not really cater to the setup of B2B purchase to pay processes. And that is where Conrad's real differentiator is. So if we look at our different solutions for purchasing environments within Conrad, we have our web shop, our open web shop. We have CSP, which is Conrad Smart Procure, where we basically make for a certain thing. We cater to the customer process flow at that point in time, which is not the case on the web shop. We define the process flow from there. And this still happens on the Conrad system. But then we also cater to the customer system, which is our OCI and CXML punch out, where it's still the Conrad front end, but it happens all in the customer backend and the customer process flow. And then the last part is the e-catalogs, where we have a customer front end. Everything basically happens in their system, in their ERP system. Now, for the marketplace, we focused on the middle part, the CSP and the OCI CXML punch-out. So what we created there is a possibility to connect also our marketplace sellers into the ERP systems, SAP Ariba, Coupa, etc., and also the CSP, the Conrad Smart Procure system. We connected that to our OCI web shop, the catalog or the place where we gather all our catalog. We are able to connect that into the catalog systems of those larger sellers, where they can place an order, and those orders are then flowing back into the systems of Conrad or our side. So we are able to process those orders. So we have that closed marketplace solution now also for a marketplace, which allows for customers to buy a much larger part of the assortment, or a much larger assortment than only the 800,000 products of Conrad. Customer examples that use this platform, I think many, especially in Germany, they are known. It's the Deutsche Bahn, it's Bosch, could also be, it's also Siemens, for instance, Zeiss, Airbus. There are large corporates all over the Europe that buy through these e-procurement solutions from Conrad. So we have a lot of value that we could deliver to them by consolidating a lot of supply. The advantages that we have for selling partners is that, they get access to over 3,700 corporates that buy over our e-procurement solutions. It's 100% automated connection through EDI, which reduces effort and cost, not only for our buying customers, but also for our selling partners. There's one administrative point of contact for both selling and buying partners, which means that instead of putting a lot of debitors or creditors in your system and taking care of a lot of different invoices, we are able to consolidate that within our e-procurement systems, making it a lot easier to buy those B and C volume products for the customers, and also easier to sell those products for our selling partners. And there's relatively low setup efforts, especially for the already listed partners on the open marketplace, because we base it on the same platform on that side. So what that basically did over the last 5 years is it took us 5 years on the open marketplace to create roughly 30% of revenue that is coming in over our open marketplace and our web shop marketplace. But we did that on the e-procurement side within 1.5 years. So it's a true exponential growth, and we see that the value for both our selling partners and our buying partners is incredible by unlocking the marketplace e-procurement solutions for our sellers. So that was a little bit insight into what we offer. Thank you very much for your attention. If you would like to contact me afterwards, here you find my email address. If you have more questions about the whole process, how you could maybe even get connected, both from a buying or a supplying side, I would be very open for that. And with that, I'm open for questions at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And yeah, there are a couple of questions. Let me just start right in. I just need to translate for a moment. This is a question that came in very early. You said that a lot of your products are not products that are bought very often.
Yes.
So the question here is, how do you remain ready to deliver when you don't know what will come?
So, like I said, we have 250,000 products stored in our warehouse in Wernberg. So that means there's already a lot of products that we have there that we are ready to ship immediately throughout Europe. By the way, everything that we deliver throughout Europe is being delivered from our warehouse in Wernberg. Other than that, we of course have good relations with our existing suppliers that are also able to drop ship from their assortment. And on top of that, the marketplace is what we build upon is again warehouses of our selling partners. So what we do, not every product is capable of delivery within 24 hours, but people can see this on the web shop or also in our e-procurement in the OCI shop, how long it will take for a certain product to be delivered. So what we also see in B2B is that although speedy delivery is very important, it's much more important to do what you say. So buyers or companies are often willing to wait a day or 2 days even, as long as it's very clear up front how long they have to wait and that eventually that is also being delivered. So I think transparency on when you will deliver is much more important than always being able to deliver within 24 hours, for instance. Yes, I hope that answers the question.
I think it does. It was very thorough. And of course, reliability is important, even if it's a little bit of weight. That's absolutely out of the question. Another question that came in is, you said the Conrad system and the customer systems are interconnected. How do they get integrated or connected? How do you do that?
So as said, there are multiple ways of integration, but the integration that really makes the most sense for both selling partners and buying partners to reduce their cost is a full EDI connection. So we have the ability to completely integrate buying customers' systems into our system. Through SAP, for instance, our ERP system is SAP, so we're relatively easy to connect SAP systems. But we have ready connections also with, as said, SAP Ariba, Coupa, Onventis, Simple System. So there is that integration on our side already with customers. And through the catalog side, it's also full EDI. So there is no manual labor in between necessary. We also have a part EDI system in there. So if there are supplying partners, for instance, that are not capable of full EDI integration, we have a semi-EDI integration where they still save a lot of time and effort by connecting semi-automated into our system. So I don't think there's a system out there that we are incapable of connecting to. Whenever there is a question on that, I'd be happy to answer on that specific case, but we are completely capable through EDI or API connections to make everything as automated as possible.
With integration, of course, always comes the question of data protection. How does it get managed? Who gets what data of what customer?
So everything starts with the basis of a contract that we have signed. Whether you are a standard supplier, the contract actually becomes significantly bigger, or a marketplace supplier. That is one thing that we really take good care of. So from a systems perspective, we have everything very, very well set up security-wise, but also from a contract perspective, we ourselves established that from a contract perspective that we take care of both the buying and supplying side of the data. but also, of course, we request this from our supplying partners and also our buying partners to be very careful with the data that we have. So there are good contracts in place to make sure that happens. And also from an IT security perspective, we have whole teams in Conrad that make sure that there's no breach on that side.
Very good. I guess the data questions come up a lot since the past year. So
yeah.
I guess that'll soothe some minds. A final question for you, I still have one. Suppliers, they might see you as a threat by joining the platform, or how do you see that?
Yeah, so when we also started that from a Conrad perspective, we the products that we buy ourselves, we also share on marketplaces out there, and I think this is in the mind of virtually every seller that is selling over marketplaces. Am I not helping other parties to really become a lot bigger? And especially in the closed marketplace, I think this is absolutely not the case, because we are already connected into those bigger parties. And B2C purchasing optimization is a very big thing for those companies out there. They're really looking to consolidate this. So if a supplying partner is already out there or really wants to sell to those bigger companies, it's not going to be an easy thing, because they are not really searching to increase the number of suppliers. They're searching to reduce the number of suppliers, which means that either you play through these players like Conrad, for instance, at the moment, or you don't play at all. And I have no idea how many sellers or potential sellers that are out there that really would like to get into contact with a Bosch or a Siemens, and Conrad already establishes the platform for that. So I think there's not really a threat out there for not being able to supply or helping Conrad to supply. It's very visible that it's being bought from that side on our OCI shop as well. And as soon as there is already a connection between a selling partner and a customer on their strategic part, for instance, there's no way they will start buying through Conrad, because there is already that connection. So the threat, although I understand it, really isn't there, and it's really an opportunity for selling partners to get into contact with those larger partners.
I guess that answers that. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for being here today and for having your presentation with us. Und an unsere Zuschauer, Ihnen vielen Dank für Ihre Interaktion, für Ihre Fragen, vielen Dank fürs Zuhören, und damit wünsche ich Ihnen und euch einen wunderschönen Tag und noch viel Spaß im weiteren Verlauf unserer Expo. Wiedersehen.